Everyone, it's Liam here from Racing the Races. So we've got racing at York tomorrow. It's the first day of the Ebor Festival. Some great races to look forward to, and I've got a few tomorrow that I'm quite interested in. We're going to start off with the 150 at York, the Skybet and Symphony Group Heritage Handicap. I had highlighted Bergerac for this race. Just the fact that he'd won it last year, he's off a £3 lower mark, and I kind of thought he had a good chance here. Looking at the race though, so he came into that race last year off the back of 3-2-1. His form was 3-2-1, so he was in form. This year he's coming into it off the back of 3 runs where he's beaten just 3 rivals out of 22, 31. 3 rivals from 31. That's really concerning if you like Bergerac. And also, if we actually look at the form of his win, he was beating King of Stars. King of Stars has since finished 3rd in a listed, not too bad. Then he finished 4th in a listed, 5th in a conditions race, and this year he's come back out in a handicap and he's finished 9th of 9. And I kind of went through that form and I didn't particularly like it. I didn't think it looked the greatest form last year. And I just think the fact that he's out of form as well, I'm prepared to leave him out of my equation here. And I'm just going to go for 2 that I do like, that we've highlighted before, we've had before, and they are due us a win. I'm hoping one of them can certainly do the business tomorrow. So they are, the first one is Corker, who we know likes the track, has some good form at the track. Now, I believe he's a listed horse that can run in handicaps, and his last 2 efforts, they've been good efforts. 2nd in a handicap at Sandown, 2nd at Newcastle in a handicap off 102. He runs again off 102, plus he comes back to the track that he really likes. So he has won a handicap here before off a mark of a 95. And I think he's also got a couple of places. He's finished 2nd off 100 behind Regional. That's really good form. 3rd to Royal Acclaim in a listed race. That's really good form. 2nd to Josie's Kid. And 2nd to Project Dante. So he's got some good form at York. And I think he's in good form in terms of himself. You know, his last 2 efforts have both been seconds. Yes, he hasn't won since winning back here in 2022, in May 2022. He won comfortably that day. It's all about getting out on terms. He's got the ground. I think he's got a decent draw in 7. He can probably pick where he chases, and he's gonna be chasing because he's gonna be out the back and then being pushed along. Clifford Lee's back on board, and Clifford rides him most of the time. I think he's ridden him to a couple of wins. He has ridden him to his win back in May 2022. Let's just have a quick check. He's ridden him to 3 of his 4 wins, Clifford Lee. So hopefully the fact that he's back on board as well, I'm just hopeful of a really big run here. It's all about getting away on terms. If he's not too far behind with after a furlong, I think he'll win. But he might end up being 2 lengths off the back of him after a furlong and then finishing best of all. But I do think he will run a really big race for us here. And he is currently available at, let's just refresh this page. He's currently available at 9-1, and I think that's a fair price for him. I think if he gets the clear run and he gets away nicely, he will go very, very close. The second horse in this race that I'm also going to have a bet on is another one that we've done before, and that is Alligator Alley. Now, Alligator Alley has some course and distance form. He has won at this track, and it was actually a listed race that he won. He's running in a handicap now, and his last time out effort, he was beaten at Goodwood. We were on him at Goodwood. He was beaten by Lord Ridderford, who we highlighted as well, and Existent. Now, Lord Ridderford had turned up to that race to win it 3 years on the trot. That was his 3rd consecutive win in that race, and was very well handicapped. The second horse, Existent, had been dropping in grade and dropped down from previously running in the likes of group races and listed races. I mean, he'd finished 4th in a Group 2 before, the Temple Stakes at Haydock. He'd also, on his only other run at Goodwood, had turned up and finished 9th. Okay, he wasn't particularly great, but he ran in a Group 2. So I can understand why Existent ran well at Goodwood. And the fact that Alligator Alley almost beat Existent, should have beaten Existent, and if he'd been in the right position, I think he would have beaten Existent. He kind of went down the middle of the track when he should have stayed right down the inside and followed the leaders through. He travels really well. It's all about whether he picks up. Now, at the beginning of the season, he was travelling really well and not being asked an effort. He was asked an effort at Goodwood, and hopefully he's going to be asked an effort again at York. And if he is, the fact that he's got some decent form at York, I mean, he was sixth earlier this season off 100 when nearest at the finish. He's running off 91. I think the fact that the handicap had dropped him another £2 for that effort really gives him a chance. Yeah, and I just think that they might be trying here, whereas maybe early on in the season they haven't quite been trying. So they are my two. And let's just have a look at Alligator Alley. He is available at 11-1 for the 5 furlong handicap. So they are my two: Corker at 9s and Alligator Alley at 11s. Moving on to the 410, the next race that I'm interested in. You can see or highlighted for this race. It is Tronador. Now, Tronador, for me, Joe Fanning got it wrong at Goodwood. Gave him far too much to do. And he was actually finishing really strongly under Joe Fanning. For third, beaten by Temporize and Robert Johnson. Now, I think the fact that Joe's back on again, he'll know that actually the horse stays further and I need to get going earlier. And I do think he can run a really big race if they get going early. And obviously the long straight will suit. I'm hoping they get racing early enough. He's one of three. Is he one of three Irish? Tony Martin's got one, Gordon Elliott's got one, and Dermot Weld have got one. And I think they could be the three to focus on here. They are Zandabad, Aztec Empire. Zandabad, Grappa Nonino, and Tronador. I think the Irish will be the big players in this race, and I think Tronador is well handicapped. He just needed a better ride last time. I think he'll get a better ride this time because Joe keeps the ride, and he's currently available at 9-1, and I think he can run a really big race here. Moving on to the 445. Now, I've just actually made a tweet about this one in our handicap analysis tweets, and let's just have a look at that. So Pinafore has been given a £9 rise to 93 after winning recently. He won 8 days ago at Nottingham. Now, interestingly, I highlighted him at the beginning of the season when he was fourth behind Once More for Luck, Your Cowclef, Should Have Been a Ring, in front of King's Crown and Ferris. Now, all of the commentators were bigging up Ferris, saying that that's the horse to take out the race. I highlighted Pinafore, and Pinafore went and won next time out at Ripon. After that, things didn't quite go to plan. He finished 4th of 8 from 5 of 5 at Lingfield. When sent off, I think he went off favourite both days. He did go off favourite both times. They put the cheek pieces on, and that really sparked him up last time, and he was very impressive, winning comfortably in a 6 furlong handicap. And I think the cheek pieces are the key here. The cheek pieces stay on, and the fact that he can actually run off a £6 higher mark, not a £9 higher mark, he gets to carry a £6 penalty instead of running off a £9 higher mark. I think that's key to him, a real big bonus. And William Haggis won't. I'm saying him, it's a her, isn't it? I apologise. This is the fillies race. I think this is key to her, and I think she can run a really big race here. And I think she's priced accordingly. She's 7-2 favourite. She's £3 well in. She is the one to beat, in my opinion. She's come out top rated. She was always looking like a potential progressive filly early this season. The cheek pieces really worked last time, and I think that's going to allow her to continue progressing. And she's the one I want here. Currently available, as I said, at 7-2. The danger for me is Pillow Talk, who does have this high R figure. Last time out, when finishing third behind Copper Knight, the York specialist. But I'm hoping Pinafore just has a little bit more improvement still to come, and does at least know how to win. Has won 3 times compared to Pillow Talk just winning the once. So yeah, Pinafore at 7-2 is my penultimate selection, and my final selection comes in the 520 at York, and it's a bit of a gamble, this one. I'm just chancing my arm a little bit here. I quite like Ziggy's Queen. Now, Ziggy's Queen has got a terrible draw. That would be my only concern about this horse, really. But being drawn where she is, I think she might be able to get on the rail and potentially try and make all the running. And having not won a race, she's finished, as you can see, third, second, and second. She's been improving each time. Having not won a race, I always think the handicapper doesn't quite get them right. She was beaten favourite last time, and she was beaten by a horse called Rocket Money. Now, Rocket Money went out next time out at Thirsk and won, so backed it up. Ziggy's Queen had previously been beaten by Indispensable. Now, Indispensable had done all right, went on to finish fourth in a listed race, third in a listed race at Nace, third in a conditions race at Goodwood, and then last time out finishing seventh in a listed race. So, she's highly regarded and probably better than what she's taking on, what Ziggy's Queen is taking on here, in terms of she was only beaten by a listed horse. And the time before that, she was beaten by Beautiful Diamond, when third. Beautiful Diamond ran okay at Royal Ascot, probably was the best horse in the race, when finishing third behind Crimson Advocate and Relief Rally. Obviously, Relief Rally has franked that form nicely, winning a super sprint, and is actually now in the Lowther, the Group 2. So the form of Ziggy's Queen is quite good. She is improving, and I just wonder whether the handicapper might not have her mark quite right. She's only got a mark of, I think she's been given 80, just double checking on my other screen. Yeah, 80. I think she should be a little bit higher than that on her form. And with that in mind, the fact that she's 20-1, I think that's quite nice. She gets a free run over the far side, and they kind of ignore her, thinking she's not one of the dangers. I think she can run a really big race here at 20-1, and hopefully Middleham Park Racing can be rewarded for their patience and not rushing her. She last ran 40. What did she last run? How many days ago was it? 47 days ago. And I just think maybe this was their plan. They thought, actually, she's nicely handicapped. She's got a mark. Let's go for a race worth 51 grand to the winner. So they are my selections for tomorrow. In the first race, I like Corker, who just needs to jump out on terms, and Alligator Alley, who ran well, beaten by a very well handicapped horse last time out. Tronador, who needs a better ride this time under Joe Fanning, but I think he will give Tronador a better ride with that in mind. Pinafore, I think the cheek pieces really worked last time, and she looked very progressive earlier on this season. And finally, Ziggy's Queen, to provide a bit of a shock at 20s and show that the handicapper hasn't quite got her mark just right. So there's my selections for tomorrow. Thanks for listening. The handicap analysis video will also be recorded later today. Thanks for the comments and likes on that. Do drop a like and comment on this video as well. Let me know who you fancy tomorrow at York. Is there anyone that I've missed, or who do you think could win some of those other races like the Voltager? And who wins the Judgmont? Is it Paddington, Mosh to Daff, Nashwa, or the Foxes? Let me know what you think.